My name's Charmaine and I cover the Southwest and I'm your host for this evening. Tonight we're joined by Joanne, who is a team leader for Norfolk and a paranormal investigator, and also Mike, who is the head team leader for Wales. So tonight we're all new to live here, so we might have some technical issues, so please do bear with us. We're going to be discussing some of the more weird and wonderful Bigfoot theories like dimensional, UFOs, paranormal, that kind of thing. So hopefully we're going to give some food for thought. As we go along, please do put questions and comments in the comments section. We'll try to get to them as we go along. If we don't manage to, we will do it at the end. So tonight we're going to start off with the subject of portholes, also known as wormholes, which are basically a shortcut between two distant places. These are actually supported by Einstein's theory of relativity, and there is a theory that Bigfoot uses portholes to travel and evade capture, but do portholes even exist? That's the question. Firstly, we're going to go to Joanne, who is going to share her experience of portholes with us.
Hello. Well, we had have a local paranormal group and also a bigger one that I am with. But with our local one, we had a lady who kept contacting us, and we kept going to the house because her children were being woken up at night, generally frightened and seeing different spirits each time. So we went along, sat in the house and turned the lights off, put Banshee box on for communication, and we had numerous spirits coming through. And what we noticed more than anything was this was a middle terrace house, and there was two each side. Now each year, in the student times, they had students occupying the other two houses, and these were in the middle. So what we thought, because once the students came in, all the spirits come into the middle house. They didn't stay in with the students. So we were like, this is getting a bit bad. So we put salt round all the boundaries, put crystals round boundaries. Still kept coming every time the students were there. Students went off for their break. We go back in again, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not a spirit in the house. Walked all around it, left boxes, everything. Asked the mum had asked the children before we got there, if they'd been woken up at night. Nothing. Students come back in. They all come back in again. So we then went on to investigate it even more. Discovered again another group of spirits. So eventually what we did, we identified which area that they were coming through. And what I did then was put a big bit of amethyst and salt water and a mirror and turn the mirror from the lady's house towards the next house. And we left it there for a couple of days, and that quietened down a lot of it. And then speaking to other mediums and people I know, they said it was a portal that they were coming through where they were uncomfortable from the house of the students. And we also think that the possibility the students used a Ouija board at some point and didn't close it properly. So that, gained the spirit's attention to go there, came through, and then we managed to deflect it. And since then, it's been quite quiet, and the kids haven't woken up or worried about it since. We'd also saged the house, we did all sorts, and it kept going until I turned that mirror around.
That's really interesting. So you think that the mirror was a kind of porthole?
I think what the mirror did was deflect them.
Okay.
It didn't actually seal it or solve the problem of they could come through again, but what it did is deflect it. So if they came through that particular bit, maybe saw a reflection of themselves, or it was the water movement underneath or something, deflected them away from it.
Okay.
So they could have gone to somewhere else down the street. Who knows? Because portals can pop up and down wherever.
Yeah, definitely.
So it could have gone to a different opening. But for that house, it certainly quieted it down for them.
Okay. Have you got any thoughts on portholes, Mike? Do you think they exist, or do you think that Bigfoot could possibly use a porthole at all?
So when it comes to the portals and stuff like that, I'm pretty much on the fence.
Yeah.
The rational side of me says don't be crazy,
Mm.
but the amount of evidence that's stacked up for it can't be ignored. It's like a lot of these things, as far as I'm concerned. So I wouldn't poo-poo them in any way, shape, or form. As for Bigfoot using them, I think certain aspects of Bigfootery, um, it certainly would make sense for that to be one particular solution. If it's the only solution or not is another matter, but certainly if you think maybe, say, for example, the argument people use about Bigfoot in the UK, which is at the end of the day why we're all here, and so one of the big arguments is there's not enough space and land and area for them. Okay,
Yeah.
but what if they're not permanent residents?
Yeah.
You know, they're coming in and
It
out and things
completely
like that.
changes it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't think we can overlook it as a possibility at all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, NASA have actually said that portholes are a possibility. They think they've pinpointed portholes going from the magnetic field of the Earth to the magnetic field of the Sun. So they say it is
Yeah.
highly likely they exist. But whether it means that, you know, a creature like a Bigfoot could have harnessed that kind of technology, obviously
And
it's
then
open to debate.
we could also, because the amount of technology we have and things like Wi-Fi, and I found Wi-Fi and especially telephone masts and stuff have interfered in our abilities of maybe a sixth sense of seeing portals and spirits,
Yeah.
and also interfering on how they travel.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a lot of, pollution. It's like with EMFs as well. You get high quantity of EMFs, and you can have a house which people are believing they're having a lot of things going on, but with an EMF you can create what's called a fear cage, which could be a loose wire tapping into something else and creating that kind of field. That gets fixed, problem solved. So you could have that kind of pollution going on.
I mean, I think portholes are kind of quite documented. I mean, I found one case, the Woolwich Foot Tunnel, when it was being built, the workers would go down there for what they thought was a couple of minutes. And when they came out, it was, you know, a couple of hours later. So they think that the Woolwich Foot Tunnel is a big porthole. Whether it, you know, is random or whether it opens up at certain times, I suppose nobody knows. But I do think it's a possibility that, you know, kind of an ancient creature knows something that we don't really.
So I don't believe in the Woolwich Foot Tunnel because I lived there for 3 years. No, I lived there 3 years and never found
Oh,
it.
did you?
Yeah, I used the ferry every time because I couldn't find the foot tunnel. So
Maybe, you know, it's a porthole in itself and it just hid from you.
Yeah.
probably.
I mean, moving on, the next is the interdimensional theory. So this is a very popular theory. Lots of prominent researchers back this theory. If anybody watched Expedition Bigfoot last night, Ron Moorhead, who recorded the Sierra Sounds, backs this theory. So most cultures speak of another dimension, heaven, hell, nirvana, Shangri-La, the astral plane. So I'm not going to go into too much depth about how these planes could exist, but basically there is the possibility that there are multiple realities layered on top of our own, and this is supported by quantum physics. Plenty of YouTubes out there if anybody wanted to go into it in depth. But how does Bigfoot fit into all of this? So it was first suggested back in the 70s by a cryptozoologist called John Eric Beckford, and he suggested that windows to other dimensions become available and allow cryptid beasts to come through into our dimension. And somehow they've mastered this kind of interdimensional travel. And he claims that it's an explanation for all paranormal activity and strange phenomena, not just Bigfoot, but creatures like the Loveland frog, similar beasts, that these alternative realities are slightly warped versions of our own, and these beastie type creatures are able to come through. So I don't know what are your thoughts on that, Joanne?
I think it's highly possible because you're often asked, like within paranormal, people ask, well, why don't we see spirits of like dinosaurs and cavemen and things like that? Well, perhaps they are around, but we don't see them very much because of when they come through these particular portals and when they exit.
Yeah. I mean, this theory, I mean, it does explain why no bones for a Bigfoot have ever been found, and it explains why Bigfoot can evade capture so easily.
And also things like Loch Ness Monster. Why is there so many sightings, if you like, and then a big distance of none?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Isn't this very much the same as a portal argument, though? I mean, is there much difference between this or even voluntary teletransportation, stuff like that? It's ways of explaining away something that we obviously can see that it needs an explanation, and it's just different aspects of it. I don't think there's much difference between them as far as an explanation goes, because it's giving an answer to the same problem. You know, and I think the problems themselves need to be looked at, rather, because I mean, yeah, I think it's universally accepted that we've got these different dimensions or multi-layered universes, however you want to word it, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty much universally accepted, even by mainstream science these days. The question is, if they're deliberately or accidentally coming between them, rather than are they doing it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of accounts that kind of say that they thought that the Bigfoot purposely wanted to show itself.
Yeah, and that's the reason why people see them.
Yeah. So
There
I
is
mean,
thoughts
it's only
on
one.
that.
Yeah, it's just my personal opinion. I think that they come through. They're able to come through at will. That they're able to, materialize, dematerialize as and when they choose. That that they've mastered it somehow.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but a lot of accounts say that they've seen Bigfoots kind of dematerialize or become pixelated, kind of predator style.
Yeah, and some of them say they see orbs and stuff with them as well, so
Yeah.
maybe that's part of how they've come through.
Yeah,
So
possibly.
we were watching Cosmic Disclosure, which is like the secret space project, and the deep underground science bases and things like that, and all these people whistleblowing on it, basically people like Emery Smith and various other people, and it was an interesting watch and stuff. But one of the things that he was talking, there was one episode where he mentions Bigfoot for about 5 or 10 minutes, and he is absolutely utterly convinced that Bigfoot are aliens, and they can voluntarily teletransport, and they are here to do. They're here on a science mission, and their mission is to gather DNA up. And one of the reasons you don't see so much of them is because they're deep in the earth, and they're gathering on the evidence on the creatures that live in there. So and then the ones that we see tend to be ones that have got older or sick, and then they're trapped because they lose the ability to
Could possibly,
teletransport.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that one, but yeah.
Yeah, because how many sightings are there of like babies and juveniles?
Yeah, exactly.
And you'd expect to find like a nursery area if you had babies and juveniles around, especially in some of these dense forests.
Yeah, and of course they couldn't stop a juvenile or a baby from crying, screaming.
Exactly, so you'd hear it.
Yeah. We've got a question coming in. Could the portals be connected also telepathically to our spirituality? Don't know if
Quite
anyone
possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose I do know of some mediums that can actually see a portal.
Okay.
I don't know if they actually can interact or have tried. But it'd be an interesting one to have a look into.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
one of the Josh Gates programs where he's in South America, and they're talking about this part of the wall, basically, and it is slightly recessed like a doorway would be, but they're saying that used to be used as a portal. But one of the things that they believe over there is that only some people can use a portal and some people can't anyway. So it's not like
Yeah.
people are likely to be able to just bimble into one accidentally, generally speaking. not without the right sort of mindset or circumstances.
Or your shamans and, you know, your medicine mans, things like that, who are more aware spiritually, if you like, to be able to see them and encounter them.
We've got another question here in regards to portals. Maybe Bigfoot are unaware of the multi-universes and they're just shocked as we are when they slip into our reality and see us. So
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Very well be. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's a possibility. So moving on to the next theory is the UFO theory. So I'm going to attempt to do a screen share. So bear with me. So this is hopefully you can see this. It doesn't crash everything. This is from, I don't know if anyone can see it. This is from a website called Freakonomics. It's a graph done by an American professor, something to do with pirates. He did a study about UFOs and plotted sightings onto a graph, and he found that states in America with high UFO sightings also have more Bigfoot sightings. So this graph shows quite a strong correlation between reported UFOs and reported Bigfoots. And he does make the point that most people believe that we're not alone in the universe, that there is a possibility that UFOs could exist, but most people don't believe in Bigfoot. So why would there be such a strong correlation between UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings? Are all the people a bit mental, or is there something more to it? I don't know what your thoughts are. We go to Mike first.
Well, if you look, I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, if you sort of read anything into that, then if they are visiting from elsewhere, then there's obviously going to be a connection with the UFOs. I think a long time we accepted the various different, going back to use a term when I was a child, the unexplained phenomena. We never used to think about making connections and connecting the dots between the two for a long, long time. It was always Bigfoot was Bigfoot, UFOs were UFOs, ghosts were ghosts, etc., etc. But now we're starting to think outside the box for a bit, and we're starting to looking at things like this. And I don't see how that they. I'm working on my own current theories at the moment with Bigfoots about. I think there's different types of Bigfoot, not just different species like people talk about, but I think some of them are flesh and blood. I think some of them are paranormal beings. I think some of them are aliens. Not that aliens aren't flesh and blood, but the jury's out on that as well at the moment, so we don't know. And I think that there's different types, different strands, not just around the world, but also within America, within the UK, etc., etc. So for me, there's always going to be some sort of correlation. A lot of the time when you see a Bigfoot sighting, same as when you get a UFO sighting, a lot of the time it's people that never really thought about it or never believed before. And it's made a believer out of the person that's had the sighting. So
yeah, that's possible.
I think I'm fully prepared to believe in a link between them without any doubt. It's like I say, it's difficult for me to explain what I'm trying to say at the moment because I'm just having one of those days, I think. But yeah, I believe, obviously, I believe in Bigfoot. But if Bigfoot was a completely 100% flesh and blood corporeal being, we would have found a lot more evidence for him by now. We haven't, so we've got to look at other possibilities, I think. And just because,
definitely. I mean,
I mean, you
it
look
could
at a
be
person and say that we're having a link here. If you get somebody that has ESP, you don't stop them from being a flesh and blood person, and they don't become a paranormal being. They're still a flesh and blood person with paranormal abilities.
Yeah.
So whenever I look
true.
at this sort of thing in the Bigfoot groups, it's either or. Well, I don't see why it can't be both.
Yeah,
that's very
there's
true.
good reason for it to be both as well.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it could be that aliens are studying Bigfoots, just that they're looking for them just like we are. That's maybe that explains it.
And if they
Yeah,
are
I
sort
mean,
of coming, if they are sort of coming in and out with aliens or through a portal or something like that, then you've got these tree structures they find. Are they then like directions or a message for the next ones to say, oh, food here is great, or don't bother, go to the next bit, or your water's in
yeah,
this direction, or something like that, you know?
yeah, it's a possibility. Yeah. Got a question here. Why would Bigfoot extraterrestrials be collecting and documenting species from Earth? Do you think it could be because they are worried about all the damage we're doing to the Earth and want to preserve the life forms we have here?
So
Yeah.
my understanding of that is that that's part of the answer. My understanding is that the extraterrestrials that are here are all, and us, we're all going through the same like phases and stages of achieving this ultimate stage of life, and they're here to protect us and help us look to go to our next phase and stage, and not be as destructive as we are. And the biggest problem that we have at the moment is how destructive we as a species are at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. I mean, we've got another question here. For Sir David Attenborough to say that Yetis exist is amazing. Even a Sherpa would not be able to fake footprints at 14,000 feet in the Himalaya mountain range. I didn't even know that David Attenborough had said that Yetis exist, so that's news to me. I don't know if either of you knew that.
Yeah, him and Jane Goodall have both turned around and said that they're quite
Yeah.
prepared to believe in unknown hominid things.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
yeah, wasn't aware of that at all. This actually takes us nicely to my next topic, which is the Am Fear Laith Moor. So please do forgive my pronunciation if anybody out there is Scottish. This is also known as the Big Grey Man, said to haunt the highest summit of the Cairngorms in Scotland, very similar to the Yeti of the Himalayas. So it's a creature living at high altitude, and witnesses describe it as a physical creature covered with grey fur, over 10 foot tall, broad shouldered. Witness experience uneasiness and eerie feeling, the sound of heavy footsteps crunching gravel. Some people say that this could be explained by what's known as a Brocken spectre. And I will just get a picture up now of a Brocken spectre. So hopefully you can see that. So a Brocken spectre is basically a shadow reflecting off a cloud, so it magnifies it.
Yeah.
Obviously, before this kind of thing was understood, it might have been the subject of a lot of folklore. I don't know what your thoughts are. Is the Am Fear Laith Moor folklore? Is it a spectral creature or is it a physical creature? If we go to you first, Joanne.
It could be a bit of both. And then if you think about it, you're at a higher altitude as well. You might not be getting as much oxygen, so hallucinations could take part.
Yeah.
It is quite an area that people will often get lost in, which could due to be oxygen intake and things like that as well. Or they could actually be seeing something. If it could be spirit, yet again, it could be something coming through a portal again, because again, there's no evidence or bones or anything up there to show that there is a creature living there.
I mean, it sounds to me quite similar to the Yeti.
Yeah.
It's blown my mind that David Attenborough said that the Yeti could exist. So who knows? But I do think. Sorry, go on, Mike.
The only thing that I would say that for me lends it more towards folklore than being something like a Bigfoot type creature is the fact that it is only the one peak that it's found around. Is it MacDewey or something? It is.
Yeah, and you would expect something to roam over all of them, wouldn't you? Really?
Yeah, that's the only thing. But I mean, I'm on the fence with this one. Definitely on the fence with this one again. But it could go either way. I think all of it plays a part. I think some of the sightings could be attributed to hallucinations, like you say. I think some of them would, there's no reason to think there couldn't be something like that up there. But the fact that it is always around the same peak makes me think it's more folklore than anything.
Yeah, it does sound like it. mean, there's a few well-known cases, a few mountaineers are quite specific that it's a creature covered with fur.
Yeah.
But who knows, hallucinations caused by, like you say, Joe, high altitude, exhaustion.
Yeah.
I mean, the Brocken spectre, before it was understood what it actually was, it would have been the subject, I can imagine, of a lot of folklore and a lot of terror. So,
And it might have been the folklore carrying on the terror of it to deter people going up there and getting lost.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. So yeah, this leads us on to our next subject, which is tulpas. So I don't know if anyone's heard of this. You may have if you watched season 3 of Twin Peaks. Basically, it's in Buddhism and mysticism, it's when a thought form becomes real. So it's mentioned in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is a very old text. Buddhists who've attained a very high level of control over their mind can create a being or object at will. Very similar to similar to shape shifting.
There was a house, I can't remember where it was now. It was a manor house in Britain, and it was sort of Essex way, I think it was. And there was a group of people that carried on with this chanting around this sort of certain area, and they managed to produce a tulpa, and it then became quite naughty.
Okay.
So they had to go back and try. This was in about 50s, 60s.
Okay.
And they had to go back and try and rein it in and get rid of it.
So would you say it was a physical thing, or was it, like...
I think they believed it was physical, but I think it was more mind over matter kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously the people who were involved in it believed that they made it.
Okay. Because I just think of the Pacific Northwest, which is a Bigfoot hotspot. You've got a lot of people believing in Bigfoot, so it's very much a part of society. So have they sort of inadvertently created a tulpa there? And it is just basically...
They could have done when you see some of them when they go on some of these shows that you get on it, but they go to somewhere who's everything's Bigfoot, and you've got your Bigfoot cafe and your statue outside and your Bigfoot walkways through your forest and things like that. With enough people on that sort of ground, could possibly.
Yeah. I don't know what your thoughts are, Mike.
I don't know. I'm sort of processing this as listening to everybody else at the moment. I think I'm not sort of. I'm open to the possibility. I mean, I think we sort of, to a certain degree, we in the mainstream, we kind of accept that sort of thing. We're always, certainly when it comes to our own senses and things. So, would it really be much more of a stretch to go that one step further and make it corporeal? We always say things like, "Oh, you only saw what you wanted to see. You hear what you wanted to hear. You only saw that because you thought that was what you wanted," and things. So. Is it really a big stretch? I don't know. It's an interesting thought, and we know that we can use all sorts of things from sound waves onwards to have all sorts of destructive properties. So why can't we have them to have constructive properties?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean that kind of leads us on to Native Americans. So they've got what Mike was saying earlier, the different, I don't know what you would call, different races of Bigfoots. They mentioned kind of stick
Because some
Indians,
people
crazy
claim
bears.
some of them claim that there's clans of them.
Yeah, I've heard
So you've
that.
got different
Tribes.
clans in different areas. Yeah, which would, for the areas and for the Native American sort of recording of them, and Canadians as well, from their records of them could quite be true, because you have different names for different regions.
Yeah, I mean they Native Americans believe that they can turn into orbs and travel between worlds. So that kind of fits with the interdimensional theory. I think that they kind of believe that they're a flesh and blood creature, like Mike was saying. Flesh and blood, but they're just able to do something supernatural. Something that humans can't do. So that does kind of fit in with a lot of the theories. I don't know if is it just mythology, Native American mythology, or is it something that's real?
There's with their sort of storytelling and everything, they go back so many years, though. It is really got to be something foundation to that, to why they've got pictures of them on cave drawings. Even people before the Native Americans as we know them, there was people before them who have drawings on stones out in deserts of them and things like that. So there's got to have been something there to start the whole mythology, if you like, in the first place.
Yeah, I remember reading about, I think it was the Tool River Indians. There's the hairy man. It's a very ancient cave painting, and they say that he, basically created man. But then when man saw him, they were scared, so he started crying. So it's kind of a Bigfoot with tears coming out of
I've
his
seen that one
eyes.
as well.
Yeah, it's very sacred to them. And I mean, is it just mythology, or is there something more to it?
Something has got to have started that kind of storytelling in the first place, and why it's carried on so long as well. Because even you have to date, sort of Native Americans and Canadians saying they know where a group of them lives and things like this, But because it's on their land and they can keep them sacred, they're keeping them sacred.
Yeah, which you can't blame them, really.
Not really, no.
No. Somebody said real spiritual teachings say that we're the creators of our own reality and can will things into being. So that goes back, basically, the Tulpa theory that, if you will something enough, you can create it. And I think, obviously the Buddhists believe strongly in this, very strongly. Not just creatures, actual objects as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, that's something, if it's inadvertently being created, that, just by being here talking about it, maybe we've created a British Bigfoot.
Who knows?
Yeah, let's have a look at some more questions. So I think during the 15th, 16th, 17th century, with the various wars going on, England versus Scotland and earlier with Wales, I think we've killed most of the hairy men, but there have been recent sightings Bristol to Exeter on the train. I mean, obviously, in, the Woodwose, depicted in lots of churches in the south. It's Surrey, that sort of area.
We've got them all around here as well.
The Norfolk kind of area.
Well,
they seem very much a part of society. But have they died out, or have they just gone underground? What were the Woodwoses exactly?
Yeah. Could they have been a lost humans that, been forgotten about, like Neanderthal kind of area, because they didn't quite disappear. They were more assimilated into Homo sapiens. So was any brackets that went away,
I think if anything was going to have such a big impact on them, though, I think rather than the wars and that happened, I think the biggest culprit is going to be the expansion of the railways. That's going to have the most dramatic impact on an awful lot. It would have carved up the land. It would have changed. Well, we know we started like a couple of thousand years ago when we started building housing and stuff. But one of the biggest problems we face in the UK is the fact that we've changed our habitat. So it was previously it was coniferous. We're in the coniferous zone, so it's mainly coniferous with some deciduous areas, and now it's mainly deciduous with a few coniferous bits furthest, right up north. It's one of the reasons why red squirrels won't expand, even if we got rid of all the greys, because we've got the wrong habitat.
Keep them the Isle of Wight as well.
Exactly. How do we know that's not going to be the same for something like Woodwose?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like somewhere like the Isle of Wight where the red squirrels are, they could be trapped on land from somewhere anyway and stay there because of the progression.
Yeah.
If these beings are connected to the earth in a spiritual way, then they're going to have such a strong, deep connection with ancient forest that we just don't have. So we could be, which is why areas the further north, the more sightings you get. In the UK as well in America, but I think it plays a big part of it. I think we as people don't fully understand the importance of ancient wood. There are even flowers that require 200 native flowers to the UK that require 200 years or so of growth of woodland before they even think about growing there.
Yeah.
So it's not a simple case of, oh, there's some woods, let's go and have a look in there.
Yeah.
Potentially, I might be completely wrong. You know, they may not care, and they may be beautifully adaptable, and that's it. You know, so there's a lot of things to consider before we start sort of declaring things as likely or not, because we are in the UK. We have destroyed what we have. I mean, we've still got plenty of lovely. Don't get me wrong. I'm not captain negative or anything. But if you look at it on a historical factor and level, then there's so many things to take into consideration here. That
Yeah.
all we can do is see what we got now and see and play it from there. Is
Yeah.
what I think.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the UFO theory that I kind of get, well, I believe that they are connected to UFOs, and it could be that they are collecting something for extraterrestrials from the forests. So maybe whatever it is that they need is from the ancient forests. Maybe they're trying to repopulate a planet similar to Earth, and they need samples. Possibility, I suppose.
Yeah.
Who knows? Let's see if we've got any more questions. What's this one? So in terms of Bigfoot, does that mean one person created them all, or multiple people created the same type of creature?
There's going to be multiple people, isn't it? Because let's be honest, it's not a
Yeah.
stretch to create something that's similar to us. I think, you know, you could have 1,000 completely isolated islands. They're all, you're going to find a lot of them are going to have similar sort of stories about
Yeah.
wild men and things like that. It's the easiest one to imagine.
Yeah. Could there be a possibility that if Bigfoot is alien, then they have groups that get left behind or interference to their portals to get back to where they are originally from? I think,
Well,
sorry,
no,
Mike.
carry on.
No, I was just going to say, I did read kind of quite a far out story that obviously Bigfoot use telepathy and that they use high frequencies to materialize and dematerialize. And I read in a book that apparently the military had found a cave where there were a load of Bigfoots, and they used a signal jammer to stop them dematerializing, and they were able to capture them. I mean, I don't know if that is, you know, a really far out. I don't really know what to believe with that, but there is the theory that, you know, the military
There's other theories
take a
as well
high
that
interest.
there's other theories that the Russians and the Americans were trying to make the super soldier. And
Yes,
what we're seeing occasionally is these experiments running around the woods.
Does that make Bobo Captain America?
Sorry?
That's a bit weird. That makes Bobo Captain America. I'm not sure I could go along with that.
No.
I mean, the program that we were watching that I mentioned earlier on, he said in there they use portals, and they also have the ability to teletransport at will, which is why you can sort of have a sighting and then it just disappears completely. Why people will see it on a thermal camera and then it will just disappear because it's gone away again.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they lose if they get sick or as they get older is they lose the ability to teletransport at will. And on that program, he said that there definitely are certainly individuals that have lost the ability to teletransport and they're kind of stuck here.
Yeah.
Then that could be the age thing or illness thing, couldn't it, really?
So,
I can't remember.
Sorry,
I can't remember what. Sorry. I can't remember what I was watching the other day, but it said like the young ones have to learn how to materialize and dematerialize, and sometimes they don't get it quite right. So you see like a pair of legs going, you know, with legs or just the top half of a Bigfoot. So is that an explanation for it? It just
possibly.
It sounds really bizarre, but you know, it's a possibility. If they do have that power, that it's a possibility, I suppose.
The other thing as well, if they use an artificial and there's technology that's letting them pour in and out, and that it does go wrong sometimes, doesn't it? So why not?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with a signal jammer, I suppose. If you had some sort of device that stopped their frequency, or
and if they haven't paid their monthly fees or something, you know.
Exactly, yeah. TV licensing van around. How do you explain, like, when Justin Smedger claimed to have killed a physical creature and passed a lie detector test? I
Part of
don't
the lie detector
know
test
anything
doesn't
about
mean
this
anything.
case, so I don't know if anyone's heard of this.
Part of the I haven't heard of this, but I would
No.
ignore passing a lie detector test because there isn't a foolproof one on the planet that isn't get roundable. So all you got
And
to
you
do
would have
is
thought,
have the practice or no, and
to,
then you'll be fine.
to be really honest, you'd have thought if somebody had actually got a physical creature, it would have been all across the media and they'd have made millions out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They'd have made millions and millions out of it if that was truthful.
Yeah. Very good. Oh, that's what you said about if Bobo was Captain America. Yeah. So I think that's it for the questions. I don't know if anyone's got anything else that they wanted to add. That's all. Either of you?
No.
Okay, that's brilliant. I think we've I think we've covered a lot really. Yeah, I think we'll leave it here then. Yeah, so thank you for joining us and everybody that's watching. It's been really good, really interesting, and I've definitely learned some stuff that's blown my mind really.
You're just blown that Richard Attenborough said that the Yeti could exist. That's it for you tonight, isn't it? That's made your Easter.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been absolutely lovely talking to you both, and thank you so much for joining us. And
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, have a lovely Easter. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.